You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. And welcome into Sox in the Basement. My name is Chris. His name is Ed. Bellying up to the 9-foot homemade oak bar. Pour yourself a cold one. All brought to you by Family Waterproofing Solutions. Remember to visit them at familydry.com. They do everything. Your window wells, your sump pumps, whether or not you got seepage, water coming in. Look, check it all out at familydry.com. Mention Sox in the Basement when you contact them. You will get money off. And I will be hanging out with the owner, one of the owners, it's a husband and wife team of Family Waterproofing Solutions. A week from today, we're going to the ball game together. We were going to do it last year, when they first came out with Sox in the Basement. Now, 100%. And he's telling me, he's like, let's go to a ball game.
And Roger Bossard won't need to worry because somebody else is in the house to help him keep the field dry if it rains.
Exactly, Ed. Let me tell you something about the field and the ballpark and my experience on Tuesday night. And no, I did not throw my voice out doing that. It turns out, Ed, that the COVID-19 vaccination only protects against COVID-19. So after you get it and you're safe from getting COVID-19, you can still get like upper respiratory infections, laryngitis, and every other thing that you've been protected from for the last 15 months when you go out in the public. And that's what happened to me. So I am an absolute wreck. We luckily have Scott Merkin on the show today. I was thinking to myself, like, who can I get that will come on, give a lot of good information, but talks, so he can save my voice? Merk's on today.
Yeah, perfect. There you go.
But I want to tell you this. I'm at the game, and I have now observed the cup snake phenomenon. And you don't know what this is, do you?
No, what's the cup snake phenomenon?
All right, this is a new thing now that fans are doing in the left field bleachers, which, by the way, is one of the rowdiest things I've ever seen at any sporting event. I have now been to 4 games. It gets rowdier and rowdier every time I go. I've seen big fights out there. I've seen the wave begin out there. Please stop that. That is not meant for baseball, and it's insulting to the players when you're doing it in key situations late in the game. Knock it off, all right?
Right.
It's not us. The cup snake, though, is an interesting phenomenon. They have been taking, and this is incredible, coming out of the age of COVID, used cups with everybody's backwash in it.
Yeah.
And whatever's left, whatever juices are in there and fluids are in the cups.
Right, okay.
And strangers are lining up and making a snake from the front of the stands to the back of the stands in this giant snake form. Now, the White Sox got a little upset, from what I can tell, about a week or so ago when a close play at first base was reviewed, and it would have been the final out. And it wasn't, and they had to keep playing. But what happens is at the end of the game, the cup snake explodes into a shower of backwash and leftover fluid.
Oh, God.
All over all the other fans standing around it, and the cups end up on the field. Now, this tomfoolery has upset the White Sox, obviously, because as I'm watching from the 300 level on Tuesday night with my lovely wife, and it was the first game she had been to, and she kept saying to me, like, she is not a White Sox fan from birth.
No, she's a transplant.
Right, she's a transplant. She never had a baseball team. She would have been in the Pirates market, but she didn't really care about them. Her dad's a Royals fan. Who wants to follow those guys? So she's just never in the baseball. She's a football fan. She's a Steelers fan. But she adopted the White Sox because of me. She moved to Chicago, and we won a World Series within like the first 15 months she was here. So to her...
So she's good luck is what you're saying.
Exactly. This is her team. But as somebody who kind of observes the game a little bit differently than a diehard, she first of all commented on the energy in the ballpark being incredible. And she was at the blackout game in '08 with me. So for her to say that, she's seen it a lot, but she said that, and then she's looking at this cup snake, and she's like, this section's insane down here. Because we're down the third base line looking down at the left field bleachers. And the first thing that happens in about the second inning, security comes down and takes all the cups away.
Well, you figure that they're going to do that.
They started too soon with the cup snake. One fan thought it was wise to throw a cup at a security guard. That was a mistake. He was let out. You could see that. Then you felt like, well, the cup snake's not coming out tonight. No. The crowd then hid their cup snake until late in the game, when the cup snake magically appears over the course of only about 3-4 pitches and runs all the way up from the front to the back of one of the sections in left field. At this point, an usher in a red shirt, so this is one of the red shirt ushers, not security, takes it upon herself to try to break up the cup snake.
Oh, that's a mistake.
She made a terrible error in judgment.
That's a terrible idea.
She went down there and thought to herself, how do I break up this cup snake? One against an entire section. I'll start hitting the cup snake, because she's shorter, it looked like, and popping the cups up in the air to break up the cup snake. The moment she does that, they're like, well, I guess we're breaking up the cup snake, cups all over the field. The game has to stop in the middle of Liam Hendricks trying to get a save, which he eventually finishes off on Tuesday night. So, I mean, like, against the Rays, big matchup, cup snake. Now, if they don't want the cup snake, I understand it. But you don't take a bunch of drunks and start throwing their cups in the air to stop them from throwing cups in the air. So the cup snake is going to be an intriguing thing to watch at ball games. That and the chanting, and hopefully no more wave. But there's way too much going on in left field. It's a game inside of itself. It is an experience inside of itself, and I will not be bringing my children in there. Maybe the older ones, because they can handle the language out there. But I will not be bringing the smaller children out to left field this year.
I have an idea for the White Sox if you're listening, and I don't know that you are, but if you are, come on, monetize this sucker, just like you do everything else that we do. Cup snake, but during the 7th inning stretch, Waste Management comes out with a giant dumpster, and the cup snake goes in, and now we're helping America stay clean.
Get your official cup snake cups out there.
Right.
I'm sure the intoxicated fans out in left field will totally go along with that, Ed.
They can do the cup snake the way they're doing it, but just don't blow it up during a save attempt. Because if you blow it up, and that's what costs Eloy Jimenez when he comes back, he's going out to catch a ball, and now he trips over the cups. Now what are you going to do?
If that happens, the rest of the stadium's going to kill everybody in left field. That will be the bloodiest day.
If you were sitting out left field, I don't care if you contributed a cup or not. If you cause injury to Eloy Jimenez when he gets back because the cup snake exploded while a ball was in flight,
right?
Even while the ball was being grounded out to second base, because he could still hurt himself going after it. Yeah, you will not be leaving the stadium in one piece.
Yeah, the massacre of left field will go down as a bigger event than Disco Demolition and the Red Wedding of Game of Thrones combined. That's what it will turn into if he's injured by a cup snake. Look, I know we haven't been to a lot of games, but let's remember a few things. The wave is stupid. Knock it off. Don't throw things on the field. Please, knock that off as well. And understand that you're not on Twitter anymore. You've spent 15 months sniping at people behind a keyboard. If you say those things to people face to face, 15 beers in left field this summer, you will be a part of a fight. And it will be everybody involved's fault. Let's just remember how to act at a ball game, because we got a really good team, and I don't want to see a loss caused by left field. On the other hand, I love the energy. I love it.
Oh, yeah. I love the energy. Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. But
don't cause an injury or a loss. Scott Merkin next. This is Sox in the Basement. I get muscle aches all the time. I've gone from being able to do whatever I want to and not feeling any pain to basically getting pain for any kind of physical activity. Good news, there's a local family-owned Southside business that provides a CBD topical that will not break the bank. Creaky Bone Balm offers concentrated relief for creaky bones. It is an effective hemp-based CBD in a rejuvenating balm. And guess what? It's made in small batches, always free of preservatives, and all natural ingredients. It's great for muscle aches, tension, inflammation, joint pain. You can even use it for skin ailments like burns and dry, cracked skin. Right now, go to creakybone.com and use the promo code BASEMENT. Get 20% off your order. And now check out the new 2,500 milligram balm with reduced pricing on their classic balms right now at creakybone.com. Join us on the phone line right now from MLB.com. Covers the White Sox, does a great job of it. and gets on this show every once in a while to kind of break down what's going on in and around the team. Scott Merkin on the line. How are you, Scott?
Good. How are you doing, Chris?
I appreciate you coming on. I'm doing great. Look, we talked about a week ago on this show about Jake Burger, and I find it interesting that the day after he has his first game at second base, you just talked to Jake Burger. Now, Ed and I had a theory that if the White Sox had to figure things out internally after Madrigal got injured for the year, they could go with a highly defensively skilled player in Danny Mendick, but if they really wanted to add a little pop, if Jake Burger could be moved to second base, he would line up great as a platoon second baseman against left-handed pitching. Now, we floated this as one of our crazy ideas a week ago, and then a week later, he starts his first game ever in the minor leagues at second base. Did you talk to him about anything? Like, what did you glean off of him when you discussed it with him?
Well, what I found out is that, about a week and a half ago, they started going in this direction where he did some work. He described kind of the extensive work he did, taking ground balls, taking double plays, going through, PFPs with the whole infield and that sort of thing during pregame. And last night was his first game, and then he's going to play again on Saturday the 19th. He told me, for Charlotte at second base. And I didn't get in too much into what he thought was the future for this, or if they told him he was going to. First of all, it's his first game. I understand that Gordon Beckham came up to the majors. What was it, 2009? After playing like 8 games at third base and became the regular third baseman for the rest of the year, but that's also a different time for the White Sox, So, but in the same sense, you have a team that could go with a guy who's very well liked and, take a chance on a young guy just kind of, learning his way as like the ninth guy in the lineup. But the way I look at that is a couple things, just that, he told me this, I think when I talked to him right after they played the alternate training site game at guaranteed rate. I think he told me this during spring training, and that, he's just looking to find ways to make himself, a major leaguer. And if that means, playing second, playing right, I don't know if he talked about short really, but, playing left, then that's what he'll do. So, versatility is a key thing in the majors. You look at, go look across town. There's plenty of examples on the Sox too, but, look what Jake Lamb has done. But I'm talking more of a featured guy across town, Chris Bryan, who's, is known as the third baseman, and I think went like a 20-game stretch where he played like one game at third base, even though he played like 18 of those 20 games. So, the better teams have guys that are versatile. And, take a look at Danny Mendick, who's now, one of the second basemen for the White Sox, but before Madrigal's injury, was playing more in right field and center field and even pitcher, So I think it's just another option. I think the Sox are going to look at what they have and go from there and see what the cost is of adding someone else. But I think right now Jake Burger is just a guy who is learning a new position, making him more valuable to, as just individually, but also indirectly making him more valuable to the White Sox as an organization as well.
And that's just one option. It was kind of a far out and left field idea that we had that, there's still a possibility. It's something the Sox could at least be exploring is whether or not Burger could be a contributor, maybe even before this season is over if they need something. But
right.
The more logical thing, and the thing that I think a lot of White Sox fans are waiting for, is a deal. I think with so many injuries, the prevailing thought seems to be you can go out and acquire somebody to play in middle infield or be able to go out and play an outfield position for you or has some versatility. Adam Frazier has been thrown out there among other names. What is your feeling? Do you think that the White Sox are actively looking to make a deal right now? And what is the probability that Rick Hahn, who has said that the juice has to be worth the squeeze, meaning if he's going to do it, it better be worth it for him to give up prospects to do it. What do you think his mindset is right now?
I just talked to the lone trade acquisition of 2005 White Sox, Jeff Blum, who's on the broadcast there in Houston last night. And not exactly a hugely, prominent, good ball player, but not like a big splash at that trade deadline. And he ends up, playing a huge role in the Game 3 World Series victory in Houston, of all places. So I think they know the team they have. They know the clubhouse they have. They trust bringing in anyone will fit because they have the clubhouse that can help the guys assimilate. But, this is a team, I've said this before, that's not just, it would be one thing if they had all their chips in for this year, which was kind of what happened, I think, in the Tatis trade. They were going for it that year, not looking beyond that year. They got a great influence on some of the younger pitchers in James Shields, who they thought would, add innings. They didn't think he was going to be the ace. They thought he'd be, a middle of the rotation innings eater type of guy. And at times he was, and at times he wasn't very good, but always, a positive force for that team. They're not doing that this time around. They want to add, they want to get better. They also believe Luis Roberts coming back this year, barring any kind of setbacks, as well as Michael Kopech will come back, barring any kind of setbacks. So they're not going to make a move to disrupt this core as much as they want to win. And Rick Hahn made that clear, to reporters the other day that, you can't overlook the 2021 title to make sure you're still in the running for the 2023 title. I'm paraphrasing now. But as much as you want to do that, you're not, their main chips seem to be, on the big league team already. So, when you have younger guys, like a Kelly or a Dahlquist or a Thompson, well, first of all, I think teams are a little slower to move because there was no season last year. So basically, the guys who did work, you were scouting them at the alternate training sites. So, the minor league season is kind of just, not just getting running, but it's kind of moving now. So it may take a little bit more to get a little bit more of an analysis on these guys. So, I don't think there's a huge rush. I think there are guys who would fit. I think there are guys, I'll tell you one name that I hear in the rumor mill, not here in the rumor, I've seen mentioned on Twitter rumor mill, is Eduardo Escobar. And of course, Arizona is just, awful right now. I mean, they've, I think, 5-37 overall in their last 42 games, something to that effect. Switch hitter with power. And I'll tell you this, they traded him, I can't remember the year now, they kind of all run together, for Francisco Liriano. We were in Texas. And, there's some great guys who played for the team and very popular guys. I don't think I've ever seen a clubhouse more, nothing against Liriano, but more upset about a guy leaving than Escobar. When it was a Saturday night, I want to say, and he was told after that game, that he was traded to Minnesota, and the clubhouse, he was a great guy, great fit in that clubhouse. So there's just a name to keep in mind. And I'm only throwing him out there because he makes sense on a team that has no chance for the postseason, and they have a connection to him, and they know what a positive force he was in that clubhouse. So to make a long answer short, I think Rick will try to make a move, just like he did last year at the trade deadline, but he's not going to make some ridiculous move, if you don't know it's going to guarantee you the next step up type of situation.
Kind of take people through deadline moves and how things, at least how you perceive it. I'm sure you've had conversations with folks around the team over your years and years of covering the team, and you have gotten a pretty good idea of this. But kind of take people through it. Is Rick Hahn, after he works out a deal, if he's taking on more salary, is he going and knocking on Jerry's door? And is there any indication that because he is just getting up to 100% now and had the COVID year last year, that it might be harder to add to the budget midseason if he had to make a trade and take on salary? Is there anything that's floating around the team right now that makes you think that there might be a limit to what Jerry would take on midway through the season?
Well, one thing that should be made clear, and I think people understand this is a group effort in the front office. This is not like, Rick Hahn goes and works a deal and, goes into Jerry's office kind of trepidatiously and says, hey, I have this taken care of. This is a thing they talk, maybe in the later stages. He, goes to Jerry and say, okay, I think we can get this if you agree. But this is, Rick Hahn, Jerry Reinsdorf, Kenny Williams, Chris Getz, Jeremy Haber, Dan Fabian. The whole front office is working on this. So it's not like it's, one guy or two guys and that's it. Rick has said a couple times, when he was talking in the offseason that they wanted to keep, I think he said some powder dry was the phrase he used, to be able to move at the, the trade deadline. So I think they can take on salary. I think they're going to take on a ridiculous amount of salary, but I think they can add salary if it definitely makes a team better.
So let's talk about this series this weekend. Sox take 2 out of 3 first from Tampa Bay. A lot of people looked at this Tampa Bay-Houston stretch, and I saw a lot of White Sox fans saying, I'll take 3 out of 7 here, and I'd be happy because we're so beat up. And then they take 2 out of 3 from Tampa Bay, which essentially says, hey, if we could just win 1 this weekend, most White Sox fans should be happy. The Sox are also probably in the loudest visitors stadium they have been in to date, because as fans are coming back into the stands and everybody's packed back in again, this is a team with a chip on its shoulder. The Houston Astros fan base, they're the only people in the world that think that what happened in 2017 was A-okay. Just like how Giants fans always excuse Barry Bonds, the Astros fans are excusing the trash cans and they have a chip on their shoulder. So the Sox are on enemy ground and it's loud. Take me through what you think this experience is going to be for this young team over the weekend, and what do you think they're going to learn from it?
Now, I will add this, that, I think there is a prevailing theme across baseball that there's a ballpark on the north side where the fans have a tough time discerning whether a ball is a home run or it ends up as a fly ball to the warning track. And I would argue that there is a depth perception problem with fans across baseball, because there was one Mercedes hit that, again, I was looking down writing, And I heard it, and I looked up, and I'm like, oh, is that on the train tracks? And it was about 10 feet short of the warning track. So I think that's something that needs to be invested. Maybe some sort of scientific study could be done on fans' depth perception of fly balls. But back to the stadium, yeah, it's a raucous place. It's a very good team more than anything else. They're 40-28, one of the best offenses in baseball, and a very underrated pitching staff. But Sox will be fine, and I think, you talk about a young team. Remember, they do have veteran starters out there, though. After Carlos Rodon tonight, who's a veteran in his own right, you have Lance Lynn and Dallas Keuchel making his triumphant return to the mound at the place where he won a World Series and pitched for 7 years and got a nice tribute and standing ovation last night. So, again, I don't read a ton into, what happens. I mean, I can't think of series off the top of my head, but, the Sox in 05 went from 15.5 up to 1.5 up. I'm just going with Chicago teams. In 16, I think the Cubs went 4-14 before the All-Star break or something along those lines. Both those teams were clearly the best team in baseball in that year, and both won the World Series that year. So I wouldn't parse too much individual games, and I think there's too much of that sometimes. And trust me, I do the same thing. You can look at a lot of my Michigan tweets over the years, and I've declared games over in the first quarter after the first drive of a football game. Now, last year I was right on that for the most part, but not so much in years past. So I think as long as they, just keep moving in the right direction. Now, the one thing you got to be leery about is, Cleveland's playing really good baseball. And, you want to be to a point by the time you get to those 8 games near the end of the year, and especially 5 in Cleveland, where you're either clinched or in control, because Cleveland does play the Sox well and does play those Sox very well at Progressive Field. I think they're 3.5 games out before Friday's action. But again, it's all about just getting to the playoffs. You want to win the division, obviously, and they're in good position to do that. I still think that the Sox have to work harder not to win the division. They do to win the division, but just get to the playoffs and take your chances. You and I have both seen great playoff teams get there, and they're done in one round. We are great baseball teams. Think of the Bomba squad for the Twins a few years ago. And we've seen teams that kind of backed in, like Jim Leyland's Tigers a few years back, Tony La Russa's Cardinals, I think lost like 8 of their last 9, and he won the World Series, and Leyland got his team to the World Series. So, anything happens in playoffs. The bottom line is get there healthy, and that's why I think La Russa playing all these guys is a good move for the White Sox right now.
Scott Merkin from MLB.com. You can check out all of his stuff. He covers the White Sox. Follow him on Twitter. Listen, Scott, I think I know why fans are so bad right now at identifying where the ball is going off the crack of the bat.
Because they're building cup snakes, is that it?
Maybe that's the problem. But I mean, like my first game back, I was a little off. I mean, we've all had a break from actually seeing it happen in the ballpark. But by my 3rd and 4th game, I've been able to tell off the crack of the bat. So I think people will get back to it eventually.
This is baseball. This is my profession. It's a lot of people's profession, but it's also a game. It's fun. And if you want to cheer whenever a fly ball goes up, if you want to build a cup snake, if you want to, chant at the left fielder, as long as it's not profane and he gets a kick out of it too, like a Rosarena the other day with the Sox fans at Leori Garcia at Target Field, have fun. There's not everything has got to be, do or make it or break it with every single moment in every single game. Have fun, keep a big picture, and, root for your team. That's the biggest thing.
And above all else, do not do the wave. That's not allowed. Everything else is fine. Yes,
I would agree with that.
Stop doing the wave.
I think waves look great at college football stadiums where there's 80,000 and 100,000 people. Don't think you need it at baseball games, but that's just our opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you, Scott. I'm with you. Thanks a lot for jumping on. We'll talk with you soon.
Okay, Chris. Feel better and take care.
Hey, gang. Ever wonder what it's like to be a small business owner? It's confusing. Weird expenses coming out of nowhere. And when you throw in health insurance, forget it. Nobody understands how that works. If you own a business, big or small, it's one of the biggest expenses you have all year long. And yet, we all wait until open enrollment at the end of the year, and then we think to ourselves, next year I'll get a jump on it. And then it's another year of paying way too much. If you're a business owner, big or small, HR representative that wants to impress the boss, give Butch Zemar of Elite Benefits of America a call. Save yourself or your boss thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars a year. Reach out to Butch right now, 708-535-3006, or shoot him an email, butch@elitebenefits.net. And be sure to check out the Zemar podcast. Don't wait till the last minute. Put Butch Zemar to work for you now. So what do you think about Berger? What do you think about the possibility of a trade?
Well, look, the news that Eloy Jimenez is probably coming back earlier than we thought. And let's hope that there's no setbacks or anything like that. Let's just be positive about it. if he comes back earlier than we thought, then we're really talking about renting a guy for the month of July. And I'm not sure that you need to go out and do something huge for that unless it's somebody that can help you next year, in which case you're looking at replacing Adam Eaton, or you are looking at whether or not you think Yermin Mercedes is going to continue to be a useful player, or if he's going to regress down to a point where you're really looking to replace his bat too, right? So if you are the White Sox and you want to make a trade, your trade shouldn't necessarily be limited to just let me rent an outfielder because that's where we're short, or let me rent a second baseman because that's where we're short. It may be worth looking at what's going to help this team in this championship window for 2021, what's going to help this team, with what we hope is a repeat effort in 2022, or at least, another opportunity and another opening in the window. And is there a younger guy out there, or, a reasonably priced veteran that you envision as the White Sox, you envision as Rick Hahn and as Tony La Russa being a guy that you're going to plug into this lineup going forward and looking to replace Adam Eaton, who I think everybody is sort of done with. I know he's on the IL right now, but gosh, he really he has not lived up to anything, and he's a guy that you're just not going to count on going forward. The question marks about rookies like Yermin Mercedes or Andrew Vaughn, all of these things are situations where you can look at and say, if there's a guy that's already a little bit proven, why don't I go out and get it? And you and I have talked about the name Brian Reynolds and Adam Frazier, and these are guys with track records.
And Merck brought up Eduardo Escobar, another intriguing possibility.
Oh yeah, Eddie Escobar is always out there for the taking, and he's a guy that the Diamondbacks will part with him for sure. And he's a guy that can definitely help because he can play all over the place, like Merck said. So you're looking at guys like that who are really just pieces that can help you make a difference now. And, again, possibly next year.
You better really like that guy because he's not a rental, so he's going to cost a lot more. When you look at the fact that Eloy is coming back, and as we said, we think that if all goes well, let's say beginning of August, and you hear what Merck's talking about, how they feel like Robert and Eloy could get back here, and that's going to really impact what they go out and get. Would you rather see Eloy stay out in the outfield and Vaughn somehow shimmy over the right field and you go get a bat that can play anywhere that's going to be basically the DH if Mercedes doesn't come around? Or do you keep Vaughn in left and tell Eloy after your injury, you have to be a DH the rest of the year, it's for your own safety, and then you may be targeting an outfielder or at least a guy that can move infield, outfield in a trade?
I think some of that's going to depend on when Robert gets back, because if you're relying on Adam Engel every day in center field because Robert's not here, I think you could go target an outfielder very easily and do that and say, Eloy, just DH this year, okay? And we'll still get Mercedes a few at-bats. We'll work you in and out of the lineup, but there's a chance Yermin's not going to be hitting quite as well, or even Vaughn's not going to be hitting quite as well by the time the 1st of August comes around. So you're going to have, I think, at the deadline, a pretty clear indication of what the outfield will look like starting the first week of August. But I think they are probably better served looking at someone who can either take Madrigal's place and focusing on making sure that they have a second baseman, because you're relying on Larry Garcia, you're relying on Danny Mendick, and you're going to rely maybe on Jake Berger if he makes a successful transition. But again, you're talking about Berger's a guy who has played very, very limited amounts of professional baseball because of injury. He is not a second baseman by trade. He is having a good start at Charlotte, but he is still a guy that could come up here and absolutely not do anything at the major league level right now because he's just not ready to go. So that's, a nice story. It's a great story if it happens and if it works out, but I wouldn't count on it. And then Garcia and Mendick are guys that you were targeted as backups. So going out and getting somebody, Adam Frazier, or, if the Rockies would give up Ryan McMahon or something like that, where it's a guy that has some flexibility, that could be part of a DH platoon, could be an infielder or an outfielder, could move around, spell some other guys. Probably a better get than just somebody who's a straight-up rental outfielder, unless it's a guy that you are going to build around for the future years and say, this is a guy that we're committed to. And then you're right, you're trading a lot for them, but that's kind of the point, right? You get to a certain level and you're sitting there going, okay, this is a guy that I believe in, that I want here for the next few years. So I am going to give up what it takes to get that guy. And I just don't see a lot of those out there for the Sox either, unless there's somebody that is kind of a hidden gem or something like that. But if you're going to go and trade, to the Mariners for Mitch Haniger, who can play all three outfield positions, and you're going to have Eloy back, you're going to have Robert back, you're going to have Engel and Vaughn available, and Billy Hamilton available for whatever, you believe he's worth, then you're just creating an outfield crowd, and maybe one of those guys shifts over to DH, but you're still left with a second base hole. And I think that's where I'm more worried right now is, how's that middle infield going to look? Because I think the Sox lineup can keep one position where you're not getting a whole lot of production as long as there's good defense up the middle. So you can probably support Danny Mendick, but I wouldn't mind having them go out and get someone who is more like Escobar, who could cover second base, who could spell you on at third, who could be the guy that gives them a good bat in the lineup and can cover up, what are unfortunately holes that were created by injury around the infield, and then let the outfield sort itself out, because I feel like there's depth out there with those two guys coming back.
And that's all assuming that there won't be another injury. And that's why it's important to make a move before you become even more desperate, because you might need somebody else in there if, let's say, a TA or a Moncada or, an Andrew Vaughn or an Adam Engel or somebody ends up back on the 10-day IL or worse. So you want to still have some flexibility. You need to add to this, but I'm telling you right now, if Jake Berger keeps up what he's doing, can play a proficient second base for the next month, he will be here, or he will be part of a trade package that brings somebody else in here to help before the trade deadline is over. Mark my words, Ed. I guarantee it.
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere a podcast can be found, and always on soxinthebasement.com.